Karen met me at the house she wanted to buy. The house was 4,000 square feet on a third of an acre with 280-degree views of the valley. It had been updated in the last 5 years and it was $525,000. The house overlooked the valley on top of a bluff. This house had everything. It was private and accessible, it was charming and updated, it was spacious with separate wings. At the beginning of the pandemic, that was still a thing you could get for $525,000. We put together a strong offer that we knew would win the home for her. Karen was adamant that this is the home. She had to have this house. It was perfect for her and her parents who were going to live with her. So I sent her offer out to the seller, waiting for her to get the pre-approval to me. By the time she got the pre-approval to me, several days later, the house was under contract with someone else. She was devastated. It was completely avoidable. With a plan for buying your first home, there won't be any surprises. It doesn't have to be a complicated plan. It just has to account for the moving parts that come together to buy a home. The 10,000-foot view of the whole process is that buying a home involves finding the property, securing the financing, making an offer, getting a home inspection, and closing on the purchase. So why would you first secure the financing before finding a property? You need to find out how much you can afford before you go shopping for a home that you cannot afford. So you can connect with the lender and provide them with a broad overview of what your financial situation looks like. That mostly means self-reported numbers about your income, your debts, your liabilities, and your assets. When you really want to be competitive, ask your lender to run you through desktop underwriting, which means that an actual human looks through your file and verifies information. It's much stronger as an pre-approval, and sometimes can be the difference between winning the home and not winning the home. So this will be your financial checkup at the same time. You're gonna look at your savings to decide if you have enough savings to buy a home, really. I mean, you need at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses because there are considerable upfront costs, including the down payment and closing costs. But you're also going to need an emergency fund and resources to help keep your home up once you're in it. One difficulty can be that you want to ensure your money is growing a little bit while you're saving for the down payment. So it needs to be relatively liquid at the same time that it's earning a little bit of interest. The second half of 2022 has been marked by high inflation, so you probably know what I'm talking about, that a dollar sitting in a bank is basically losing money, losing value, I guess you could say. Some people choose a certificate of deposit to hedge against inflation, whereas others opt for a high yield savings account, primarily because it's insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation for up to $250,000. In this process, you're reviewing your spending. If you know how much you spend every month and where it's going, you'll also know how much money you have left over to make a mortgage, or how much that you want to afford for a mortgage. Your lender is going to do a credit check, and you should do one too. This will give you an idea of your credit score, but also what your debt to income ratio looks like. Your debt to income ratio should be no more than about 43%. Now, obviously it's different in different parts of the country and different lenders, but 43% is about right. So when you consider that lenders are generally going to limit the total housing expenses to about 30% of your monthly gross income, you start to realize that 43% is actually quite high. If you think about that, that means 30% towards the house, 43% towards your debts, other debts. That's 73% of all of your income. That does not leave a ton of money left over for traveling and enjoying life, going out to dinner sometimes. So in some cases, you're going to want to pay down your debt to income ratio to help you better afford the mortgage. After we've worked with the lender to get you pre-approved, we're gonna go on to the fun part of figuring out what type of home will best suit your needs. You could potentially decide that you want a single family home, or you might opt for a duplex, a townhouse, a condominium, or a multifamily building with 2 to 4 units. So some of these options include the idea of house hacking. And house hacking is basically just buying a home that you will come to rent out at a later time. And it's a hack mostly because you're able to buy with a primary residence down payment that can be as low as 3%, whereas an investment residence requires 25% down. So the downside of house hacking is that many people are attached to the idea of a single family residence where you don't share any walls or green space with renters, and that can be kind of a deal breaker for some people. Their vision of owning their first home doesn't include sharing space with people. So while there's going to be features that you're going to have to negotiate on, be a little bit flexible with, largely, by and large, you should be getting exactly what you want out of a home. So it makes sense to make a physical list of all the properties and nuances of a home that are important to you. Some of those things might be the style of the home, or the size of the home, or what neighborhood it's in, or the materials that are used, or what the bathroom layout looks like, what kind of appliances are in the kitchen. You can get an idea of whether your desires are within your budget by looking at homes on various online websites with MLS listings, and you can kind of adjust accordingly, right? You get a sense of these amenities are available at this price in this area, and it's a little bit too much for these things in addition. So because you spoke with a lender before you started shopping, you already know what your budget is, and it's going to save you a lot of hassle. It'll help you avoid a tremendous amount of anxiety that comes from shopping for a home you can't afford, but also have fallen completely in love with. This is a bad feeling. It prevents you from losing momentum when you're already in the headspace of looking for the right home. You don't want to have to go back and do paperwork to see if you can afford it. I would strongly recommend interviewing lenders and realtors as the very first step before anything else happens. That way, you can be sure that the person working for you fits your temperament, style, and expectations. You want to work as a team. It's with the lender and the realtor. By interviewing your lender and realtor before getting pre-approved, you can focus entirely on finding the right home instead of worrying that you're not a good fit with either of those professionals. That also means you'll be getting the best deal on your closing costs because you will have shopped around. Some of the costs that many buyers forget to account for up front are the property taxes, the homeowner's insurance, maintenance costs for the home, and of course, the closing costs. A good real estate agent is going to help you locate the home you want, of course, but in this digital era, more likely than not, you are going to see the home you like first online. And that means that your agent will have done a really solid job of communicating well with you about your wants and needs. Once you found the right home, you, the agent, and the lender are going to collaborate to craft a strong offer. Often lenders can help you add some creativity to your offer in a tight market. And once your offer is submitted, your real estate agent will be negotiating on your behalf to get the home under contract and then throughout the process all the way to the closing table. A good agent will be a strong negotiator that you like to be around. It might be a little strange to hear, but you want the agent on the other side to like your agent. It is much more fun to work with someone that you like. It can and should be a win-win scenario for you and the seller. You should both be getting something that you want. The process, by and large, should be a positive experience. Of course, that is not always the case due to the fact that it's a high stress scenario, but it should always be the aim. Your agent will ensure that you avoid pitfalls throughout the process and that your paperwork is in order. Real estate agents generally receive a commission based on a sales price from the seller's proceeds, but not always. So check with your agent about how they get paid. These are the most important aspects of getting you under contract on a home. And once you're under contract, there are several negotiations that your agent will make on your behalf, like I said, to ensure that you like the terms associated with buying your home. There are 5 deadlines in the contract that your agent will use to help you buy the home. So be sure you know what and when those deadlines are, including the earnest money deadline at the very beginning. At this point, everything is now bound by a contract, and that means that deadlines are binding and decisions have weight. It doesn't mean that you're locked into buying a home that turns up problems or that you end up not liking or whatever issues come along the road, but it does mean that everything has to happen in a certain amount of time once an offer is accepted. This makes decisions a little bit more complicated and usually much more stressful, but while there are deadlines that will be important in terms of what the realtor wants from you, there are also new documents that your lender must have to get you approved for your loan. Up until now, your purchase has really been, your pre-approval to purchase has been based on a home that is 100% theoretical. So now that we have an actual home with all the numbers that is concrete and everything has to line up just right, again, you can see why you would want to feel good about your lender and realtor as someone that you trust. With so many moving parts in such a short amount of time, there really just must be a baseline of trust that your well-being is cared for throughout the process by your professionals. I sincerely believe that using this first-time home buyer's plan will prevent buyer's remorse, mostly because at every stage you're going to be mitigating the amount of pressure you're under. And the less pressure you feel, the less stressed out you're feeling, the more pleasant of an experience it's going to be for you. And most importantly, the easier it's going to be to save money because you're not going to be frantic. So you'll make very cool, calculated, logical decisions. Don't forget to interview your realtor and your lender before you get pre-approved, before you go shopping for a home. These simple hacks will reduce your stress and in turn potentially save you money from costly mistakes, really thousands of dollars. Watch my best neighborhoods in Salt Lake City guide up here. I'm Ryan Shupit with Active Utah Homes, a Realty One Group signature. This channel teaches you everything you need to know about buying your first home in the greater Salt Lake area.